be nurtured. They need to be obviously brought up with the Bible and with biblical principles. But they had a skeptical view of man, whereas some of these liberals had a positive view of man, that all they need is a little bit of education and they can do great. Now, if you want to fast forward quickly, in the 20th century, John Dewey is probably, if you look up John Dewey in any education book, he is the most influential person in the philosophy of education, bar none. Extremely influential person, as well as Columbia University.
But he went to the Soviet Union and studied their system.
John Dewey was a socialist, and John Dewey was one of the founding members of the Secular Humanist organization. He felt that we needed a new religion, which was secular humanism. Even Dewey knew, he didn't acknowledge God, but he knew God puts a yearning for him in every person's heart. Now, unfortunately, those that haven't gotten the message, they look elsewhere. They fill that yearning with something else. Dewey knew that, not that it was God, but he knew that man wanted to worship something. So he wanted secular humanism to be that worship, and he wanted the sort of education to be the God. That was the God that he was looking for. And so Dewey started his project in the 1920s, the 1930s. He had a core of people, many of whom were socialists and Marxists at Columbia. Columbia is a huge part of the story. And it took them many, many years to work their project into the schools, and it worked in faster probably in the cities than it did in some of the rural areas. It wasn't complete. I still think they're very frustrated. I think they're very frustrated that their project has not been as successful as they wanted. But it's a really toxic philosophy that is at the heart of the public schools. Now, I'm not going to criticize any given school. I can't broad brush it. It would not be fair and not be accurate. But I think Christians need to question. They need to know if their children are in a public school, what are they being taught? Look at the textbooks, read the textbooks, go to some classes, look at the curriculum. And it's really a frightening thing for a Christian.
So
really
what do you think then of the movement of homeschooling?
It's awesome. And I'm not saying...
And it's a threat to the secularists.
It definitely is a threat to the secularists. They don't like it, and they fight homeschooling because anything that takes kids out of the school means they get less funding. They're looking at it from a funding standpoint. But there's not one answer. You can definitely be a committed Christian and send your kid to a given public school, and it can work out fine. Not saying that it can't. You can also go the route of a Christian school. That can work out fine. And obviously homeschooling is a very good option. The main thing, and this is what I so much like about this program, is the main thing that we're trying to do here is just to get you to, if you weren't questioning this before, if you weren't questioning education before, it's to question and find out, do some research, some education for yourself, and then decide what's best for your children or for your grandchildren. You may need to nudge your children a little bit about your grandchildren, that how are they being educated.
Tom, I'd like to back up and go into some of these men who were behind this movement, although they weren't even Americans. You mentioned Reverend Francis Hutchinson, Reverend Thomas Reed, in Common Sense, Adam Smith, and Reverend John Witherspoon.